Well, hey there, and welcome back to Heimler's History. Now, we've been going through Unit 3 of the AP U.S. History curriculum, and in this video, we're going to look at the first Constitution of the United States. What you talking about, first Constitution of the United States? This here's America, son. We only got but one Constitution. Well, I'm afraid that's not true. The Constitution that we know and love today is, in fact, our second Constitution. Our first Constitution was known as the Articles of Confederation, and we fixing to talk about it, so let's get to it. Okay, so the Articles of Confederation. You may recall that on July 4th, 1776, it was made public that the Continental Congress had agreed to declare independence from Britain, and that meant that the Americans were now officially separated from the authority of the British government, and thus they needed a new constitution to organize political authority in the new states, and the product of that need was the Articles of Confederation, which was ratified in 1781 to become the new governing document of the nation. Now, the Articles didn't just drop down out of the sky fully formed without precedent. No, they were actually in large part influenced by existing state constitutions. So before and during the Revolution, state governments had formed their own constitutional governments, and the thing you really need to know about these governments is that they largely focused political power into the legislative branch. Now, in case you don't know what that means, let me explain it up real nice for you. The legislative branch of a government is the one that's responsible for making laws, and in the state governments, the legislative branch consisted of representatives of the people. So, by placing power here, it meant that they wanted the power of the government answerable to the people. So, as I mentioned before, the Articles of Confederation was ratified in 1781, and the folks who created this governing document were many of the same folks who had created the state constitution. So when it came to a governing document for the whole nation, they likewise placed the power in the legislative branch. They didn't want to invest too much power in an executive or a president because they still had kind of a monarchy hangover. So in order to avoid the consolidation of power into one person, they put the power in the legislature, which was directly answerable to the states and thus the people. Now, to that end, the Articles of Confederation did not even provide for an executive. Like, there was no president to speak of. Furthermore, there was no national Supreme Court. Like, all the power was invested in the legislature, and every state represented in that legislature had an equal vote. Additionally, each state had veto power over any changes that could be made in the Articles, and supposing there were no vetoes, the Articles still said that for any changes to take place, 9 out of 13 states needed to agree. Now, that is called a supermajority, and in case you have no idea how politics works, it is very difficult to achieve said supermajority. So all this to say, it was a very rigid and nigh unto unchangeable document. Now, one of the most immediate problems the new government was facing was with regards to westward migration. As Americans continued to push west for settlement, they continued running into American Indians who resisted them. Not only that, people were just like going into the Western Territory and squatting willy-nilly all over the land, and so to regulate all this Western Territory, the federal government passed what may be the only good law on the books under the Articles of Confederation, namely the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. Now, this piece of legislation did a lot of things, including the promotion of public education and provisions for protection of private property, but arguably the two most important things it did were as follows. First, it abolished slavery in the Northwest Territory, and second, it provided an orderly means by which the unorganized territories in the West could get themselves a population and then apply for statehood into the Union. Now, as I said, the Northwest Ordinance was probably the best thing that came out of this weak federal government, and probably the worst thing to happen to it was Shays' Rebellion. And it was really this rebellion that proved to many Americans that the Articles of Confederation was a flawed document in need of replacing. So, what happened? Well, by the mid-1780s, the American economy was kind of a hot mess, and this was especially true with the nation's farmers. Many of them had fallen into debt while they were off fighting the Revolutionary War, and when they returned to their farms, they were having loads of trouble paying back those debts because of inflation and new taxes that were upon them. They even petitioned the state and federal government for relief, but they had no luck getting any meaningful response. So you can imagine why they'd be angry. I mean, after all, they were off fighting America's Revolutionary War, and when they returned home, they were in danger of losing everything. Now, as it happened, a man named Daniel Shays from Massachusetts was one of those angry farmers, and he ended up gathering a militia of about 1,000 folks and headed down to the town arsenal to arm themselves. Now, it wasn't long before the Massachusetts militia stopped them and crushed the uprising. So why is this so important? Because when Massachusetts saw all these angry farmers bearing down on them, they picked up the phone and called the president to send federal troops to help them. Beep, boop, bop, boop, beep, beep, beep. Hey, help! But guess what? No one answered because there was no president under the Articles, nor was there a federal army to send. And so it was really this little rebellion in Massachusetts and the possibility of other rebellions like it that showed everyone the weakness of the Articles. And so that's when local and federal leaders began to whisper about the possibility of crafting a new constitution to replace the Articles. But we're We're gonna have to wait for the next video to find out what they did. Well, alright, that's what you need to know about Unit 3, Topic 7 of the AP U.S. History curriculum. And if you need help getting an A in your class and a 5 on your exam in May, then click right here and grab my review pack. It won't fail you like the articles failed America. And if you want me to keep making these videos, then subscribe and come along. Heimler out.